The role of Muammar Gaddafi in the Pan-Africanism movement and his efforts to unite Africa. Muammar Gaddafi, also known as Colonel Gaddafi, was a controversial figure in African and Arab politics. He rose to power in 1969 through a military coup and ruled Libya for over 42 years. Gaddafi rule was marked by authoritarianism, human rights abuses, and a cult of personality. However, despite these controversies, Gaddafi was also known for his efforts to unite Africa and promote Pan-Africanism. From promoting a single African currency to supporting liberation movements, Gaddafi's efforts to unite the continent were notable. In this video, we will be taking a look at 10 key roles Muammar Gaddafi played in the Pan-Africanism movement and his efforts to bring about greater unity and cooperation among African nations. From his role in the formation of the African Union to his push for a United States of Africa, we will examine the impact of Muammar Gaddafi's vision for a united Africa. But, his rule also marked with the suppression of political opposition and human rights abuses, which ultimately led to his downfall in 2011 as a result of an uprising and a NATO-backed intervention. Here are 10 roles that Gaddafi played to promote Pan-Africanism and unite Africa. 1. Muammar Gaddafi was a vocal advocate for the unity of Africa. Muammar Gaddafi was a leader who had a big dream for Africa. He believed that the continent could achieve great things if its nations came together as one. He was a vocal advocate for Pan-Africanism, the idea that all African nations should work together to achieve common goals. Muammar Gaddafi knew that the effects of colonialism and imperialism still lingered on the continent, and he knew that the continent needed to be united in order to overcome these challenges. He was determined to make this dream come true, and he took action to make it happen. One of the ways he did this was by creating organizations like the African Union and the Pan-African Parliament. These organizations brought leaders from across the continent together to discuss and plan for a better future. With these organizations in place, leaders were able to discuss and plan for a better future for Africa. 2. The formation of the African Union, AU. Muammar Gaddafi was a leader who believed in the power of a united Africa, and he played a key role in the formation of the African Union, AU. The AU is an organization that brings together all the nations of Africa to work towards common goals, such as economic development and political stability. Muammar Gaddafi was one of the driving forces behind the creation of this organization, and his vision for a united Africa was a major influence in its formation. In 2009, Muammar Gaddafi was elected as the chairperson of the African Union. As head of the AU, he took a number of actions to further the organization's goals. He proposed the creation of a Continental Court of Justice. 3. Muammar Gaddafi promoted greater political integration among African nations. Muammar Gaddafi had a vision for a united Africa, and he believed that by promoting greater economic and political integration among African nations, the continent could achieve great things. One of the ways he proposed to achieve this was through the creation of a single African passport. He proposed the creation of a single African passport in order to promote greater political integration among African nations. He believed that a single passport would help to reduce barriers to travel and trade between African nations, making it easier for people and goods to move around the continent. Muammar Gaddafi's ideas were ambitious and groundbreaking, and although not all of them were realized during his lifetime, his contributions to the African Union and his actions as its head shows his dedication to the idea of a united Africa. 4. The establishment of the African Investment Bank and the African Monetary Fund. Muammar Gaddafi had a vision for a strong and prosperous Africa, and he believed that fostering economic development and cooperation across the continent was crucial to achieving this goal. He proposed to do this was through the establishment of the African Investment Bank and the African Monetary Fund. The African Investment Bank was intended to provide funding for infrastructure and development projects across the continent. Muammar Gaddafi believed that by investing in infrastructure, African nations could improve transportation and communication, making it easier for goods and people to move around the continent. The African Monetary Fund was intended to support the African Investment Bank and promote economic stability across the continent. Muammar Gaddafi proposed that the fund would provide financial assistance to African nations facing economic difficulties, helping them to stabilize their currencies and avoid economic crises. He also proposed that the fund would help to promote trade between African nations by providing financing for trade transactions. 5. Muammar Gaddafi was a major donor to various African development projects. Muammar Gaddafi was a leader who truly cared about the well-being of the African people, and he demonstrated this through his generous donations to various African development projects. He believed that by investing in infrastructure, education, and healthcare, African nations could improve the lives of their people and build a stronger and more prosperous continent. One of the ways Muammar Gaddafi supported African development was through his donations to infrastructure projects. He provided funding for the construction of roads, bridges, and other transportation projects that helped to improve connectivity between African nations and facilitated trade. For example, he provided funding for the construction of the African Renaissance Dam in Ethiopia, the Great Man-Made River Project in Libya, loans and grants to countries like Egypt, Ghana, and Senegal, and he was a major donor to the African Union. He also provided funding for the construction of hospitals and other public buildings that helped to improve the lives of the people. 6. He actively supported liberation movements across Africa. Muammar Gaddafi was a leader who believed in the power of self-determination and actively supported liberation movements across Africa. He understood that the continent would be stronger when all its nations were free from colonial oppression, and he took action to support anti-colonial and anti-apartheid movements in countries such as Angola, Mozambique, and South Africa. One of the ways Muammar Gaddafi supported liberation movements was through providing financial assistance. He provided funding to various liberation movements to help them achieve their goals of freedom and self-determination. Muammar Gaddafi also provided military assistance to various liberation movements. He provided weapons and training to freedom fighters. For example, he provided military assistance to the MPLA in Angola, which helped them to defeat the apartheid-backed UNITA forces during the Angolan Civil War. He also provided military assistance to the ANC in South Africa, which helped them to fight against the apartheid regime. 7. The establishment of the United States of Africa. Muammar Gaddafi had a vision for a united Africa, and he believed that the establishment of the United States of Africa, a proposed federation of African states, was strategic to achieving this goal. He played a key role in pushing for its adoption at the African Union Summit in 2009. Muammar Gaddafi proposed that the United States of Africa would be similar to the United States of America, with a central government and individual states that would retain some level of autonomy. He believed that this would help to bring African nations together, allowing them to work towards common goals and speak with one voice on the international stage. He also proposed that the member states would retain the power to make laws and policies that would apply only within their own borders. 8. The Pan-African Green Charter. Muammar Gaddafi was a leader who understood the importance of protecting the environment and promoting sustainable development across Africa. He was a major proponent of the Pan-African Green Charter, which called for the protection of the environment and the promotion of sustainable development across the continent. One of the ways Gaddafi supported the Pan-African Green Charter was through his efforts to promote sustainable development in Libya. He implemented a number of policies and initiatives that aimed to reduce the country's dependence on fossil fuels and promote the use of renewable energy sources. For example, he established the Great Man-Made River Project, which aimed to provide fresh water to the desert regions of the country and promote sustainable agriculture. Also, he provided funding and other forms of support to help other countries implement sustainable development policies and projects. He also worked to promote cooperation between African countries on environmental and sustainable development issues through the African Union and other regional organizations. 9. Mediating peace talks. Muammar Gaddafi was a leader who believed in the power of reconciliation and peace. He made efforts to resolve conflicts and tensions between African countries, mediating peace talks, and working to bring about reconciliation between rival factions and nations. One of the examples of Muammar Gaddafi's mediation efforts was peace agreements between Sudan and Chad, which put an end to years of tension and fighting between the two nations. Muammar Gaddafi also played a key role in bringing about reconciliation between rival factions in countries such as Somalia and Sudan. He helped to bring rival factions to the negotiating table and mediated peace talks to help resolve conflicts and bring about lasting peace. He also provided financial and other forms of support to help promote reconciliation and peace-building efforts in these countries. 10. Establishment of a single African army. Muammar Gaddafi believed that the establishment of a single African army. He proposed that a single African army could intervene in conflicts on the continent to ensure peace and stability. He understood that a united military force could deter external threats and that it would also help to reduce the cost of defense for African nations. Muammar Gaddafi proposed that the African army would be made up of troops from different African countries and would be under the command of the African Union. He believed that this would help to ensure that the army is representative of the entire continent and would be able to respond quickly and effectively to conflicts as they arise. He also proposed that the African army would be equipped with modern weapons and technology to ensure that it is able to effectively intervene in conflicts on the continent and help to bring about lasting peace and stability. In conclusion, Muammar Gaddafi played a significant role in the Pan-Africanism movement and his efforts to unite Africa were notable. From his role in the formation of the African Union to his push for a United States of Africa, Muammar Gaddafi's vision for a united Africa had a significant impact. It is important to remember that his rule was marked with authoritarianism and human rights abuses, which ultimately led to his downfall in 2011. Nevertheless, his contributions to the African continent cannot be denied. We hope this video has given you a deeper understanding of Gaddafi's role in the Pan-Africanism movement and his efforts to unite Africa. We encourage you to subscribe and share this video with your friends and family and to continue learning about Africa's history and politics. Keep exploring and stay curious.